Hello and welcome to Buying and Beyond, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of retail buying. We're Kate and Linz and together we have over 30 years experience in retail.
We'll be talking all things retail buying and beyond, so grab your drink of choice and come and have a giggle with us.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. Episode 5, Season 2. Wow.
We've got so much to talk about suppliers that here we go again.
Here we go again. There's
And I
so
think
much more content.
We're going to go straight in. No small talk.
Okay, fine. No tangents.
No tangents.
Can't promise that.
So, you could have a supplier for everything.
You could.
But do you need a supplier for every single thing? So we often talk about rationalising your supply base.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it a lot more efficient to manage and it costs a lot less to the business to service.
Yep.
But actually recently we've been talking much more about the word
Optimise.
optimise.
Buzzword.
So, i.e. you need to reduce the number of suppliers you've got for efficiencies,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want to get rid of too many and limit yourself.
No.
So you just really need to be quite considerate of like, what do you need?
Yeah.
But you need to make sure you're spreading your risk.
Yep.
So don't be afraid to bring on new ones if they offer something you need and you don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you're working out how to get the best out of your suppliers. So you're kind of working on like more of a fewer suppliers, more focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of work on a one in, one out policy. You know, like when you're clearing your wardrobe out, and you're like, right, I'm going to get rid of 5 items, and I'm going to replace them with
You could look at it as
3.
your core suppliers are your capsule wardrobe.
Yeah.
And then for your slightly new or maybe trend, you know, they're your trend items.
Mhm,
They're
mhm.
like your fashion pieces for the season that you're
Yeah.
going to try.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I love that we've translated that into a complete like.
It's quite nice to just compare, isn't it? No, but I think it's really important to have partners within your supply base. So you want to have at least, I mean, really, you can't really pick a number, can you? Because
Every category is different.
every category is different.
And I agree with your one in, one out.
Yeah.
But once you've got
Once you've established it.
yeah,
Yeah.
once you've got your optimum
Your sweet
number
spot,
of suppliers,
definitely. Because if you've got like hundreds and hundreds of suppliers, being dramatic here, for a category that doesn't really turn over that much cash as a percentage of the business,
you're spreading yourself too
spreading
thinly.
yourself too thin. You're not important to anybody. You're not important to anyone. They're not going to really be bothered if you were there or you're there or you're not.
I was listening to someone talk the other week actually, and they worked for one of the bigger department store retailers, shall we say, in the beauty department, and she quoted 400 suppliers.
400?
Yeah. Which
400 in beauty?
Mm.
Wow.
Which feels,
Toppy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does, doesn't
It's
it?
just more from an accounts point of view. How do you manage that?
Yeah, and not all of them can be driving huge number of sales. And I would almost say, I think you need to rationalise.
I mean, from a
Optimise.
periphery point of view,
Yeah.
absolutely.
But I mean, it would be interesting to understand what the numbers that they're doing.
yeah,
But
definitely.
it would lead you to think that maybe, well, it feels like it would be less of an 80% of your products are driving most of your sales. You probably think 20% of them are driving most of your sales,
Yeah,
right?
I
And
mean,
then you've got
I
this
suppose-
80% that aren't
Yeah.
really doing that much.
I suppose it really depends. Like, if it's just one category, like beauty, that does seem quite toppy. But if it's a multi-category business, then I think some directors can come in and fall prey to coming up with this strategy that they're going to revolutionise the world by bringing a rationalisation project. But if you've got a multi-category business, you've got to first of all understand that. Don't just come in and be like, right, cut half your suppliers without really understanding
It goes back to understanding their capabilities,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
what the business is, how the business works. You may have come from a real like high street retailer to a cottage industry retailer. can't think of another word. And you've been hired because you've got really good experience in that, but sometimes not all of that experience applies to these small niche industries, and you just like I've seen it so many times.
It's a bit like that. There is not one size fits all.
There isn't.
From business to business.
There isn't. There really isn't. Yeah. I think the way that I approach it is what is that supplier bringing from, I mean, what is that supplier bringing from a handwriting point of view? So I will bring on a certain number of suppliers, let's just say 5 for a certain category, just making that up now. And they each have to be offering a different handwriting that the other one can't. There may be a slight duplication across some product SKUs, but ultimately they're in there for a reason because they do a different look and feel. They've got access to different factories in different regions, etc., etc., etc. And then from a branded point of view, it's kind of the same conversation as well. Like, what difference are they bringing, and you know, does it sit nicely together?
And you're not wanting to put all your eggs in one basket as well, because we've talked about that, about spreading your risk as well.
You have to. Because not everybody delivers their product on time.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially in seasonal categories.
So you kind of have to have a few suppliers, and also almost like an emergency list if something was to happen to that supplier. Who's your backup? Yes. If something was to happen to that supplier, who's your backup?
Yeah.
You kind of need to have 2 people that can do something in case anything was to happen. I mean, God forbid, a fire or something like that out of their control.
Quite a bit, actually. I mean, tragically, but you know, it's like those things happen out there, and also stock falling off containers.
Oh goodness, yeah.
Stock falling off containers, stock falling off ships.
Yeah. The containers falling into the sea.
Yeah, exactly.
Lost at sea.
There's loads of different
but so many different scenarios, which means that actually you do just need to make sure you cover yourself. So I think that's where the word optimise actually really comes into its own, because I think rationalise makes it sound like you're just stripping out the bare basics.
Yeah.
Which is important. So start by rationalising. What would be the absolute skeleton that I need?
That I could operate with.
And then build that back up with, okay, well, what is my second option on all of these? If I can't get that product in, what will my customers, where will my customers go? What will my sales translate into?
Yeah.
And what backup do I need? And as you said, like, you can get rid of them and you think you're rationalising and then feel like you can't bring on anything new.
Yeah.
But actually, using the word optimise makes you think, oh, actually, no, that's something new and exciting. I've got X number of suppliers, but I could bring in one more.
Yeah.
The hardest thing sometimes about bringing on a supplier can be, well, how much are they actually going to drive sales-wise? Yeah. Because you want to go in cautious, as we've talked about in the previous episode. You know, you're not going to suddenly place huge orders with them without knowing really, can they produce on time? Can they produce the required quantity on time? You daren't put yourself at a sales risk by not having that product arrive.
No.
So you go in and you gradually build that business. But there's also a cost to service, as we said at the beginning. There's a cost to service that supplier. So you kind of need to think about what is your 2, 3, 4, 5-year plan with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how are you looking to build that business? And if you don't see that turnover, you're not hitting those numbers.
Yeah. Then
are they the right supplier to have?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Actually, as much as we dislike VBAs,
makes me want to cry.
They can. They're a good revenue driver. But also, they do set a target, and it does make it quite clear for both you and your supplier what you're working towards, what levels you need to hit, and what are your expectations in terms of the business you're going to place.
Yeah.
And for them to work towards, to make sure that they've got all the kind of foundations in place to make sure that they can hit those numbers.
Yeah, and be a sustainable supplier within your supply base.
Yeah.
Because we talk about sustainability a lot, don't we, from an environmental point of view, but we don't talk about it enough from a supplier ethical point of view, you know, in terms of don't just bring on a one-hit wonder. You know, I know there's like we said, things happen. Sometimes you need to jump to someone to get a stock in, to hit the sales, hit the budget. But that's not that's not part of your strategy, is it? It's not part of your building blocks of growth.
I don't think any business wants to be jumping around as much as, it's a great opportunity to get into a business for a new supplier, a new brand. If there's an opening and a buyer's been let down by somebody and you've got the opportunity to get your product in, that is a great opening.
Yeah.
But I'd also say that they would expect to build your business from there, and you should expect to build your business from there.
Yeah, exactly.
No one wants to be jumping around. It's a lot of work for nothing.
Yeah, it really is.
It's much
you may
easier.
hit your sales that year, but
it's much easier to have a long-standing relationship for everybody. You understand them, they understand you. You invest in each other, and actually it's much easier to keep something running and is a sure winner.
Yeah, exactly. And just keeping on the topic of sustainability, I think especially when you're working with sort of UK-based suppliers or branded suppliers, they are sort of talking to you about sustainability as being part of their USP, but are they actually doing anything about it? I think there's so many times where I've sat in meetings with sales managers.
It's like become a buzzword.
It's just buzzword. It's just greenwashing. And they don't actually know where things are made. They don't know what it's packaged with. They don't know the company's, goals that they've set for over the last few years, etc. And you need to ask for proof of intention. You need to ask for what the 2, 4, 5 year plans are. What are their factories doing to support? And if they can't give you those answers, then it's just a marketing tool for them.
Yeah.
And so many times I've been in really embarrassing conversations about that. And it's just I don't like to put people on the spot, and I don't like to make people feel uncomfortable, but you can't just keep banding that word around. There needs to be something
without that
behind it.
Something, definitely. But I think if you do rationalise your supply base and you have your top partners and you build exactly the partnership with them, then you really get to know what do they really mean by these words that they're just throwing out there. If you spend time with them and you live and breathe each other's needs, you really understand what they want out of it and what you want out of it.
Yeah, you need to put that investment and that time in. I mean, I think over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, we've seen long-term suppliers being sort of kicked to the curb in favour of quick win fixes due to many, many reasons, really. I mean, obviously the pandemic being a big one. But I kind of feel like it's sort of a question that I'd really like to hear other people's viewpoints on. Are retailers now returning back to their long-timers? We need our suppliers support us the most at the moment. I think it's something that I feel like retailers are now becoming interested in again, like building those long-term relationships.
Yeah, it kind of got a bit hot potato, didn't it? When everybody, I think, was sort of struggling to
scramble around for stock.
Yeah, and also just understand. Like there was a real big boom and everybody had their identity and sales were absolutely flying. And then we hit a point where people weren't really quite sure who they were anymore. And it felt like people were jumping from supplier to supplier to try something new. And almost emulating, so-and-so's doing that. They must be doing well. Let's try that. Can you go and find a supplier for that? People were hot potatoing suppliers.
Toilet roll. Everyone wanted toilet roll in the pandemic. So it's like, can you find a supplier for toilet roll? Quick!
Suddenly you're walking down the Ponji.
Why aren't the Ponji doing toilet roll? Yeah, exactly. I
was not expecting you to say that. That really made me giggle. Oh, goodness me. But yes, when you have a smaller number of suppliers as well, you've got your close-knit, you understand each other's values, you know where each other stands. You can also plan in your supplier meetings, like you can plan in regular contact. I think that can be something that sometimes can clog up a buyer's inbox, is suppliers trying to get in contact.
Yeah.
They're like, hi, have you heard? Hi.
Or when they send multiple emails.
Yeah, saying
the same. Multiple emails.
Saying the same
I had
thing.
a supplier once ring me to say, can I just have 5 minutes with you? And they knew, they emailed me first and then were like, can I have 5 minutes with you? I know you're really, really busy. So I was like, okay, fine, yeah, new supplier, I really just wanted to get them engaged. And they got me on a call and I thought, well, it's going to be something really important. They got me on a call to tell me they were sending me an email.
No.
Okay.
I don't know what more to say to that than no, don't call to let me know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit like when a supplier calls at like 4:45 on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to answer the call. It's going to have to wait.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of an understanding. I think if you've got fewer suppliers, then you can be more attentive.
Yeah, you can give them more time and affection.
Yeah, a bit more TLC.
Yeah.
And you can book those meetings in. I think if you've got those meetings booked in, depending on the weighting of that supplier and their kind of like their importance, whether you have them quarterly or you have them every 2 months or you might have them every couple of weeks. But making sure you've got those touch points diarised in just reassures them that if you haven't replied to their email, they've got to catch up anyway with you. They're seeing you
bring
in
it up
person,
then.
on a Zoom, on a call.
Yeah.
They can bring it up then. And I would recommend to suppliers not to keep hounding, because if there's one way to get a buyer's back up, it is to keep sending the same email over and over again and fill up their inbox.
But also, just when I say sending those emails, like, can you not just put all of that information on one email, you know? I mean, it just winds me up.
Well, it just fills up, and you've got so much to get through in a day. Like, let's face it, a buyer's life is chocker, and you're ad hocing and you're spinning plates. And we've said it multiple times, all roads lead to a buyer. So everybody's queuing up for a conversation. So it can be really good. If as a buyer you diarise those meetings, and as a supplier you try and get everything summarised in that meeting, have a follow-up email, and then you have your next meeting. Or, you know, there may be a couple of emails, but let's not keep going on it. There's often those supplier meetings as well. You know, they'll start with how is business. You'll have a much more productive meeting as well when you have a face-to-face or an email or a call or something, rather than on an email. Often as a buyer you're just firing things off. So you can have much more productive time. You know, how is business? You're asking that on both sides. And then depending on that supplier, who they are, how, again, they're weighting, how much business you have with them, what kind of a relationship you have. You know, you'll be deciding how much information to give. And I very much remember being in my first supplier meetings and being quite thrown by the sort of like, you know, how's business or how's trade. I mean, like, oh my God, like, do I tell them like actually how we're doing or not? But the more I've learned is actually like you can spin the current trading facts. Like you're not lying.
No.
You are giving the facts, but you might just think about how you might want to spin those facts. How you might want to present that information to drive that conversation in the direction that you want it to go in.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, a really great saying someone said to me once is people buy from people. So it's just so important to develop a really good rapport, a really good level of understanding of each other, like we've said many a time. And in my notes, I've put, don't be a dick. Wasn't quite sure if I was going to say that or not. But I think it's more like, you know, don't be too aggressive, and don't be too sort of coming across like you're teaching us to suck eggs, you know, coming across like we don't know anything. I mean, we may not know something about that product type. That's fine. That is what you're here.
But don't teach me to buy.
Don't. I think there's a level of you know, putting together a really great pitch because you know your brand can drive that buyer a really, really good return, and you know you should be in those stores. And we want to see the passion. Like, I definitely resonate much better with an account manager that has really good product passion, you know, and I think that is so important to see. And also just sort of finding out where my knowledge gaps are, and then operating as someone that's then sort of teaching me, but not teaching me to suck eggs, you know, presenting me a product proposition that they know will fit really well within the store. I've been on so many calls with branded suppliers where they've never even been in the store.
Oh yeah, no, that's
And you're just like, guys, come on.
yeah, no.
Come
Get to know it. Get
on.
to know what the store looks like, the layout, how things are, what other brands are there. Yeah, get to know who your competitors are within that store.
Yeah.
But I was also going to say, when you were saying about being passionate, I was like, yeah, be passionate, but don't be a prick, because it reminds me.
Don't be a dick. Don't be a prick.
Because it reminds me of when we were doing a bit of rationalising, and a bit of rationalising and realising that actually we had quite a lot of suppliers doing the same thing. So we'd very carefully looked at the numbers and realised that there was one brand that actually right now we don't need. Like, it was taking up too much space in the store, and it wasn't driving the number that we needed.
Return per
So
square foot, yeah.
we were given, they were given advance warning, because definitely do not just pull. Got another story on that, but don't just suddenly say, we'll no longer be stocking your product from now. No, you have to give them warning. You need to prep them in advance that you will be winding down their business. So an email had been sent by one of my buyers and had explained that we wouldn't be looking to take it on for the following season, and these were the orders that they could expect over the next number of months. And they sent back a presentation of all the things, well, basically a long email as to kind of why we shouldn't be walking away from them. And we did say, doors open in the future, but right now this isn't something that fits with our assortment. And they came back with a really long email of all the reasons why we should be staying with them in a PowerPoint presentation. And I remember like huge letters at the top of this PowerPoint presentation. You will be losing X amount of money by not listing these products. And it was like, all right, okay. And the whole email was quite aggressive of how much money we were going to be losing by not listing them. Almost, and how we really need to rethink our decision. Now, I understand you're trying to back your business and you're trying to regain it.
With the capitals.
But at the same time, it was almost assuming as though the buyer hadn't done their numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be losing how much? Oh, thank you so much for telling me.
Yeah.
I won't delist you now.
Exactly.
And it was
Read
like,
the room.
well, no, this has been a decision that has been made. You're not making it any easier on yourself, and it would be much better if you were more gracious about it, to say, okay, I understand. I think this is, from my point of view, this would be leaving you with a sales gap of this, but, respectfully, you'll be,
you'll be filling that with something else.
That.
Could I have some constructive feedback on that? Or
yeah, and please bear us in mind for the future. We've got some great new things coming, this, and this. Please stay in touch. Yeah. And you're like, oh, you took that really well.
Yeah.
You took that professionally.
Yeah.
I like you.
Yeah.
I like your response. It was a decision that we, had to make. Hand was forced.
Yeah.
Wider business decision. And so, actually, you've left on good terms.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your email. Let's
and
definitely
I think
stay
about
in
you
touch.
for the future, because there'll always be an opportunity.
But if you're going to send me something really aggressive and tell me how much money you think I'm going to be losing, as if I haven't even thought that through,
guys,
that's a bit of a red flag. So I think there's a real thing in terms of the different ways you talk, communicate, and you negotiate, and the ways that you would adjust your communication style, and that I think is a real good example of how you adjust your communication style, depending on who you're talking to, the sort of information you might want to share, and the sort of way that you might respond to something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that definitely leads us into some retail therapy. I was at a development meeting with a UK supplier when one of the new directors came in to meet me. He introduced himself and went in for a hug. He was much taller than me, so as I leant in for the hug back, I had nowhere to put my arms apart from around his waist.
Oh my God!
So we just stood there in a big teddy bear hug while my account manager just looked on.
Oh my gosh.
It was the weirdest and most awkward greeting ever. I think even worse than when you go in for a polite kiss on one cheek and then they go for the other two, but you don't. And then some cultures, they go in for three.
Oh, the three, really.
Oh, God, it really throws me.
Yeah.
Oh, that is awkward when you don't know how to greet somebody. Have you ever done it where you've gone in to, shake their hand?
And they've gone for a hug?
Or, yeah, they've stepped in too close and your hand's in a place you'd much rather it wasn't.
I mean, it hasn't happened to me personally, but... I have had stories. No, I think the greeting of the suppliers, it's like you set a precedent, don't you? And you're then hugging for the entire time that they supply you.
Yes.
And you're like, and I think sometimes when they come to the office and there's like people from accounts there and you're in the foyer hugging people and they're probably like,
What are they doing?
Here?
I had it once where we had a consultant come in, and I was an assistant buyer at the time, and I was with my buyer, and we got introduced to this man who was going to be our he was going to work with us on a consultancy basis for a month or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were introduced, and he greeted us with a kiss on each cheek. Like, great. So every time we saw him, and he'd come in, a couple of times a week, or we might go out for a comp shop with him, and every time you saw him, you greet him with a kiss. And as it came to the end of that month, an email went round to let us know that this said consultant was our new buying director. He'd been on gardening leave, I think, from his previous role, so he couldn't be introduced as our new director. But
my God.
he'd come in to like understand a bit more about the company and work with us. But it completely threw me. I was like, so now
We've
now
been
do I
kissing the buying
Yeah,
director.
I've been kissing the buyer. So now what? Like every time I go into trade, do I say, well, hello, good morning?
Oh my God, could you
know what
imagine?
I mean?
My sales are down 15% on the year and 70% on budget. But oh my God, that's so funny.
Awkward.
Right, I've got another one.
Okay, go.
Okay. When I worked for one of the lovely Arcadia companies, I had a fairly new buyer. She was pretty high maintenance, and senior management felt that maybe we weren't getting along as well as we could. So to help with bonding, they decided to send me along with her on a supplier trip to Italy. Lucky me. First night in Florence, we went out for dinner, and after we'd eaten, they left a bottle of limoncello on the table. A bottle, blimey. We managed to drink the entire bottle.
Oh, that's impressive.
Woke up in the morning feeling absolutely wretched and was still being sick as we were being picked up by the agent, who drove a 4x4 Italian style, very fast and heavy on the brakes. Oh, God, the worst thing. Arrived at the first supplier and made it halfway through the meeting before I had to leave and go and be sick in the toilet. After that, the agent took us to lunch, and I spent the whole of the lunch in the disabled toilet in the restaurant. Oh, God, cringe. After that, it was inspiration shopping, and I had to spend the whole time sitting outside on the pavement as I was so worried I was going to throw up in Gucci. Thankfully, after a bottle of full fat Coke, I managed to recover, but I was so sure I was going to be sacked, and that would be my first and only buying trip.
Oh, God. Oh, I feel
It's the paranoia, isn't it? Like, oh my God.
The thing is with limoncello is that it just slips down, doesn't it?
You don't really understand the alcohol content.
No, it's just so delicious. You're like, until the morning.
Oh, God.
Oh, I feel for her.
I do too.
Oh, but she doesn't say how that went down with the buyer she went with.
I know. I mean, the whole point
Were
was
they both in the same
bonding,
situation?
and she didn't mention anything about the bonding.
Yeah, did they actually bond?
Yeah. Did
Was
she
she
throw
in
up in Gucci? Brilliant.
Oh. Right, what have I got here? Okay, so the next one, we got on a voice note from somebody, and it is so good.
You need the tone, don't you?
You have to hear the tone. So I'm sure she won't mind. I would say that her voice has been edited to make her anonymous, but I think it's too good with the actual dialect.
Yeah.
Hiya. We went to a supplier in Romford that and we were all there, the full team, like buying, merchandising, and we were working on some stuff, and it got to about 11, I think it was like 11:30 or something, or even maybe 10:30, and no one had offered us, we just had a cup of tea, no one had brought out any biscuits, no pastries, nothing. Like, when you go to suppliers and you get like full on like platters of food, nothing. And she was like, can somebody like go out and buy some biscuits, because I need to eat some food. Because they were going to take us for lunch a bit later on, but that wasn't until like 1, and she was like on her knees, and I loved it. I was like, yes, get them to buy some biscuits for us. That was one of the main stories I remember. I'm sure I've got more. I'll keep hitting you up with more.
That is brilliant. Such diva-ish behaviour.
Brilliant.
But you can imagine it, right? Buyer on their knees, pulling samples out, putting swatches together. They're absolutely gasping and they just need some substance. It's a bit
Brilliant.
like, you know, that Stacey Solomon clip that's like, I just need a sandwich, you know, when you just need a sandwich.
Oh, God, I love that clip. That's so funny. So, those are some great stories. The Stacey Solomon clip is just the best. And exactly how I imagine that buyer was feeling.
Yes.
So here are some of our top tips for creating and ensuring you have a great supply base to work with.
Number 1, rationalise and then optimise. Fewer suppliers means more focus, but don't get rid of too many. If you're considerate of what you need, you can make sure you have the strongest range and spread the risk. Number 2, encourage more partnerships, particularly with your top suppliers. Invest in each other. When you have full confidence in each other, you can support growth on both sides. Number 3, sustainability is key. Make sure the right intentions are there. Don't buy into greenwashing and ensure your suppliers are clearly invested for the right reasons.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.
Bye.
If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, please, please, please like and subscribe and leave a review.
And if you already have, thank you, thank you, thank you. We all need a bit of retail therapy, and this is the perfect time for you to offload about that super cringeworthy story. We would love to hear from you all, your funny stories and experiences, or even any dilemmas. And maybe we can help, or at least find someone who can. And don't worry, we will keep these anonymous and remove any names and brands.
We would also love to hear from you on any topics you would like us to talk about. Please send all of these into buyingandbeyond@gmail.com or drop us a DM via our Instagram page @buyingandbeyond. Kate, are you a drama queen?
No,
Drama just makes things interesting.
that's true.
All these thoughts and opinions are our own and based on our own experiences working for a wide variety of retailers. These are all in the hope to entertain and educate, and not to reflect negatively on any place we currently or have previously worked.